Hey everybody, this is Jules Sapasic and welcome to the Fired Up Network. Welcome back to the Sports Wrap and Hall of Famer. I'm going to call him a Hall of Famer, broadcasting legend, Stormin' Norm Rumack. Well, this week in the CFL, it's the traditional, that's when the CFL starts, the Labor Day games. Before Labor Day, Norm, well, I'm going to touch on it. It doesn't matter. A good game, Saskatchewan and Winnipeg.
That was a
Saskatchewan
great game. Great game. Went right
34.
down on the wire.
Yes, 34-30 for Saskatchewan. Great game in Saskatchewan, the best team in the league, 9-2. While the Blue Bombers are 6-5. What did you think of that game?
Well, as you mentioned, Saskatchewan's got the best record in the CFL, and it's so exciting. People talk about the CFL, and it's not as good as the NFL, but out on the prairies, well, actually the only place where they don't love in terms of attendance the CFL is Toronto. But you saw a great crowd in Hamilton for their Labor Day Classic with the Argos. The Argos won, to their credit. Also, a classic game. It went right down to the wire. Last play of the game, basically, with seconds left on the clock. So that was a classic game. But a great crowd in Hamilton. I think they said 26,000. You got to remember the CFL stadiums for the most part are smaller, much smaller than the NFL stadiums. And it was about 36,000 out in Regina at Mosaic Stadium to see the Riders and the Blue Bombers. And then the Banjo Bowl comes up next week, the rematch in Winnipeg. And but yeah, that game was right down to the wire. And you see, I love watching Saskatchewan. They drive from all over the province for hours, to watch the Riders. And it's great to see 36,000 at Mosaic. And they're right. You see, most of the stadium is wearing green. And they keep cheering for their team, whether they're winning or losing. And they're the best traveling fans in the CFL. Wherever the Riders go, they go. You'll always see some green and white fans at every road game that they're playing in. So you can love the CFL and the NFL. And in Toronto, it's most fans who are NFL fans don't pay attention or not very much to the CFL. I don't understand why. Like I've pointed this out many times, our friends in the States, they support college football as much or more than the NFL. And most of those college players won't be playing professional ball in the United States or Canada. Even the ad for the NCAA. The ad that the NCAA puts out, Joe, it says most of our student athletes will go on to work in other professions other than professional sports, and that includes football. So maybe 1% of the football players end up with a career in pro football. Maybe it's somewhat higher, if you include the CFL or playing it, in the Arena League or whatever, but they make a living, right? So, people in America don't say, well, it's college football. Most of them aren't going to be professionals. But in Canada and Toronto specifically say, well, it's not the NFL. Well, it's not the NFL, but it's still a great entertaining league. And I don't know why people knock it all. It's different from it's not the same. There's Canadian players. It employs Canadians. So what's wrong with that? I don't get why people in Toronto knock it so much.
I agree with you 1,000% also. And talk about college and the States. Some of the stadiums are 100,000 seat stadiums.
Yeah,
and they fill it up, right? And
that's right. Yeah, Michigan
stadiums having 25,000. They got in Michigan and in Ohio State and everywhere else. They got over 100,000 seat stadiums. So really, really good. But for me, I obviously I like the Buffalo Bills. I like NFL, but CFL. If you're going to go game for game, CFL, you throw the ball. It's more exciting, and they. The last second, the Argos, let's go to the Argo game. They win on a last second field goal where the NFL, if the game is 28-7 like Edmonton Calgary was, they're already shaking hands at the 3-minute mark.
Yeah. So like I say, you can love both leagues. I have since I was a kid. I watched the NFL when I was a kid, and I watched the CFL, and I just don't know. And I like, again, to be fair, in almost everywhere in Canada, the CFL teams are loved by their home fans, and their smaller stadiums. But in Toronto, it's kind of like this attitude about, well, it's the CFL, and I get the feeling
perceived as not major league. But let's be fact. You're a little bit older than me. Before there was the Blue Jays, the Argos were the place to go. The Argos were
Yeah,
the
they used
first
to
team to
draw
win up the
50,000 at
NHC.
exhibition. Yeah, they used to draw 50,000 at exhibition stadium before the Blue Jays came around in '77.
Yeah.
And now there's so many. To be fair, there's so many professional teams in Toronto. Uh, that including women's professional sports. To be fair, added on to that. So there's only so many dollars people have to spend, and like your friend Eric does. How much are Leafs tickets and Blue Jays, especially Leafs tickets these days? Even a standing room for a Leafs ticket is what? How much? 100, 200?
$250.
That's
And
the standing room.
Maple Leafs season opener against Montreal in October, a pair of tickets, doesn't matter where it is, could be the worst seat, 1150, meaning $1,150, meaning
Well,
usually rent is 14, 1500. You meaning a pair of tickets for Leaf game cost you your monthly rent. All right,
yeah,
put it that way. So it's and CFL, the tickets, the most expensive seats, $30, $40, right? You compare that, it's unbelievable. But I gotta go into the Labor Day Classic in Hamilton. This was also a good game. And let's face it, I got to give this guy, he's almost as old as you, Bo Levi Mitchell, 27 of 37, 405 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Nick Arbuckle, who's, substituting for Chad Kelly, 33 of 40, 352 yards, 3 touchdowns there.
yeah,
And, Kenny Lawler, the wide receiver for the Ticats, 9 receptions, 123 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jake Herslow had 6 receptions for 67 yards, 2 touchdowns for the Argos. The Argos are 4-8, Hamilton 6-5, and really good game. And the last game of Labor Day, the Alberta Classic, let's call it, Edmonton into Calgary. Calgary walking all over them, 28-7. Calgary, second best team in the CFL, 8-3. Edmonton 4-7. There. Anything else you want to touch on the CFL before we go to other leagues?
yeah. For the Tiger Cats and their fans at the stadium in Hamilton, they still calling it Tim Hortons Field, or do they change
Oh,
that?
they changed it this
Oh,
year. I believe it's Hamilton something or
stadium.
other. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyways, in Hamilton, but it has to be disappointing that their defense couldn't come up with a big enough play at the end of the game, or when they had they had a 9 point lead
yeah.
early in the game.
Hamilton
And
Field, they're calling it Hamilton Field.
okay, fair enough. So I was almost right. But in any case, it's got to be heartbreaking for the Hamilton fans. You have a lead, like it looked like after Bo Levi Mitchell came up with that great touchdown at the end of the game with 30 seconds left on the clock.
Yep. Yep.
That Hamilton couldn't hang on. And that's where you need your defense to come up big. I mean, Hamilton's defense is usually pretty good, but it
And
was an entertaining. If you were neutral, it was an entertaining game.
What a great play by the end of the game, also by Arbuckle throwing to Herslow, and he caught the ball at the 2 yard line or
Yeah.
something like that with like 10 seconds left. So it was quick to get that field goal, and they won 11-yard field goal. You
Well, he
don't hear,
almost ran out of time because he had one
yeah,
second left on the clock. There's enough time to kick a field goal, right?
yeah. So that both, the opening game, like we talked about, Winnipeg and the Argo game, 2 out of 3, really superb games there. Now, we'll go to Major League Baseball, and of course, we're both in Toronto. The Blue Jays are in first place, but last week, at the start of this week, they were 4 in a 5 game lead over Boston and the Yankees. Yankees have lost 1 in the last 10. Boston won. Both of them are 2.5 games back. The
Yeah.
problem with the Blue Jays recently is the bullpen has been giving up leads, have been giving up games, and this same bullpen were really good in June, July, August, but now it comes down to when they need them, the bullpen is blowing up. Bo Bichette, 4 for 4, really on a tear. And I got to say this, they paid $500 million, the equivalent to 650, 700 Canadian million to Vlad Guerrero. Nothing against Vlad Guerrero, but Bo Bichette is a month away from free agency. You think the Blue Jays will open up the wallet again, or does he want to sign back with the Blue Jays?
Well, they'll have to open up the wallet. He's been a clutch player for them,
Yeah, well, 2 to 300 million dollars. I don't think that the Blue Jays are going to do that. But are you worried if you're a Blue Jay fan?
Well, I mean, I'm more of a neutral. I don't really care who wins or loses, but if I'm a Blue Jays fan, I'd be worried about that for sure. You got to who are you going to replace those runs with? Like who are you going to get on the
No,
market
I'm
that
not
you
even
can?
replacing. I'm saying for this year, we were talking. Oh, they're first place in American League. They're a game behind Detroit. They're going to make the playoffs. They're going to be better and all that. Now they're still going to make the playoffs. It looks like, and if they don't finish first, they may be the wild card team where you have to play a game or two to get into that second round. And if you get in, if you finish first or second, you don't play the wild card. So
Well,
that
and part of the challenge for the Blue Jays, Joe, as you know, and you probably have the information right in front of you, is most of their remaining games are against AL East opponents, and they have what? They have a series this week with the Yankees. I think
yeah,
they finish up on the road in New York at the end of the month with another 3 games. I think that's correct. They have 3 more. So in other words, 6 more
here,
games
here's
in total.
they have 2 more games in Cincinnati. Then they go to the Yankees to play 3 games. Houston comes here for a 3 game series, and then it's basically the
Baltimore. They got
Baltimore.
Baltimore for.
Baltimore's here. They go to Tampa, and then they in Kansas City. In Boston comes here, and then Tampa comes here to close out the year. So this next, I would say, 10 games, they need to win at least 7 because I think these other games with Tampa and Baltimore, I think they could win them easier. I'm not going to
Well,
say
Tampa, in spite of where they are in the standings, they've had a tough year. But uh,
always
uh,
gave the Jays problems.
well, yeah, and even on the Sunday night baseball game, Tampa Bay was pummeling the Seattle Mariners, who are fighting for a wild card spot.
Eight
So
nothing right now. Eight
yeah,
nothing.
so Tampa Bay, they've had their problems, but they're no pushover, and they've always been a thorn in the side of the Blue Jays, no matter where they are in the standings, and they've done that to other AL East teams too.
Yeah, so it should be interesting. Well, it started September, so this month is a do or die for any baseball team. But you got to give it to the Milwaukee Brewers. Let's
Yeah,
face it.
what a series they had in Toronto.
They had an amazing series, and they're the best team in the league. And they're 30 games over 500 already, 86 and like 55, something like that. So they're
Yeah.
definitely maybe the only team in baseball to gonna win over 100 games. Now, let's. Is there something else you want to talk about baseball, or let's move on?
No, well, we can. There's some interesting races in the West. It's always fun watching Los Angeles Dodgers and San Diego Padres.
Yeah.
There's always
The
other good
Dodgers have
teams
been
to talk
struggling
about.
also. Lately, Dodgers have been struggling also. So, San Diego, a lot of people, obviously, Los Angeles has a payroll of trillions of dollars, but a lot of people want San Diego to overpass the Dodgers and do something in the playoffs.
Yeah, well, you're right. Listen, they've got a loyal fan base, and they're a bit of an underdog. The Dodgers have been a great team for a decade. They haven't won as many World Series as we think, but they won it last year, and they're always a contender. So people love to hate the teams that are successful, right? They want to see them come down, unless you're a Dodgers fan. But the Dodgers have great players. They've had some injuries. They've had some disappointments. Uh, with some of their pitching. But anyway, we'll see what happens. But yeah, they're always interesting, Dodgers and Padres to follow, and it should be some great playoffs in the East and the West this year in Major League Baseball.
All right. Usually we have taken a break from soccer here. We're going to get Carmen Asako in the next week or two and start more soccer coverage on the Fired Up Network. But MLS, Philadelphia Union are first place in the Eastern Conference. The TFC have 25 points in 28 games. Montreal has played 29 games. They got 24 points. Atlanta, I have to say this for John Nelson, 28 games, 28 points. These guys are not making the playoffs. In the Western Conference, a surprise. San Diego and Minnesota are 1-2 in the Western Conference. Third place is Vancouver Whitecaps. So look out for Vancouver in the postseason here.
Well, and
And
Vancouver made a key addition, as you know, in Thomas Mueller,
yeah, and
Germany.
he's been playing really, really well there. All right, I know a lot of fans come into Fired Up Network and want Norm's opinion. We haven't talked about this, so Norm, I'm going to give you the floor for about 2-3 minutes. All right, we're going to go to National Hockey League, and the big news in Toronto: Mitch Marner signed a deal with the Las Vegas Golden Knights. Then he had an interview with TSN and said he was threatened. He had to hire security for 2 weeks there because he was worried about it. And he said that his dream was always to play Maple Leafs, but now that he has a young family, he had a boy, he decided to sign with the Vegas Golden Knights. But we have to come back to Toronto for him to experience snow. All right, like whatever. But what do you think of Mitch Marner? First of all, leaving Toronto, and who would that affect the most? And signing with Vegas.
Well, I mean, here's the bottom line. He's perfectly entitled to go where he feels comfortable. And if he didn't feel comfortable in Toronto, so he puts his family first. So I admire that he's a family man. And if that's important, not if that, obviously it's important, goes without saying. So I shouldn't be phrasing it as a question. It's a fact. Any family person, would put their family first. So having said that, the bottom line question has got to do with this. If you're a Maple Leafs fan, have they so far replaced the points that Marner would put up in the regular season? You can talk about them and criticize, the foursome that they have in terms of Nylander and Matthews and Marner and
Tavares.
Tavares. But the bottom line is, so if you lose a guy like Marner, who's replacing the points that he would put in the regular season? And I ask that because the Maple Leafs might have a battle to make the playoffs. Now, people would say, you got to be insane to say that. No, because so far, have they made up for the 100 points that he would, let's say, close to 100, somewhere 90, 100, 110 points? What did he end up with last year, regular season?
103 points.
Okay, so somewhere in that ballpark, right? Let's say between 85 to 100 or 100 plus points, allowing for some injuries or whatever. All right. And he's not really an injury prone guy. So the question is, assuming Montreal is going to be better, I don't see Boston and the Rangers missing the playoffs again, or they'll be a lot tougher, put it that way, even if they weren't to make the playoffs. Buffalo eventually has got to get it right. I'm not saying even make the playoffs. About 14 years since the Sabres were in the playoffs, but at least they'll be a tougher team to play against, I would assume. I think it's a fair assumption. So sooner or later, some of these teams, these other teams that didn't have great years last year, are going to be tougher to play. So the question is this: have the Leafs got enough points to replace what they lose in Marner? And if not, they may be, as insane as this sounds, they may be battling for a playoff spot, Joe.
Well, and let alone they're relying on a guy they picked up from the trade, Nicholas Waugh. But Nicholas Waugh is a third, fourth line player. They're
Yeah.
also signed Nicholas Robertson, and let's face it, he has talent, but I can't see him score 30 or 40 goals this year. Then Michael Pezzetta they signed, and that we'll be lucky if he scores 15 goals. William Nylander's got to score again 40 to 45 goals. Bobby McMahon has to pick up the points there also. Austin Matthews, he had 73 points, but was injured for 15 games. Austin
Yeah.
Matthews got to come back to being a 60 goal scorer, maybe even a 70 goal scorer to pick up the
Well,
points. And they're relying on a guy from Utah, Matthias Maccelli, who's pretty good, but I can't see him scoring 25 to 30 goals. Those are where the goals will come from. Scott Lawton's going to score goals. Come on. David Camp, Matthew Nyes has to pick up where he's left off and maybe have a slight bump. That's where the goals and the points are going to come from. Do you expect Max Domi? Max Domi, from what I hear, may be playing the right wing on the first line. If he plays with Nyes and Matthews, he's got to produce. He's got to produce. If he plays that first line, you expect him to have 20 to 25 goals and produce if he's on that first line, because I don't see them taking away Nylander and Tavares. So that's a
Well,
built-in second line.
yeah. Well, regardless of who plays on the first line, I mean, Max is a hard worker, so he brings something to the team. He's a
Don't
little.
you got to
Mhm.
say everything, because you're friends with Ty Domi and you're worried that he may give you a knuckle sandwich. All right, so like, look,
No, but it's true. Max is a hard worker.
he is
He's
a
a
hard
feisty
worker,
guy.
but
Yeah.
there's people who can work hard, and if you're going to put him on the first line, he's got to produce 25 goals to say
Well,
the least, maybe 50 or 60 points.
but you got to admit, if you're on a line with Austin Matthews, you got a pretty good chance of being successful, picking up assists and goals, because he's going to create those opportunities for you. That's the kind of player. He's
And
a
it's still a
superstar. He's one
question
of the best
mark.
players in the league, right?
It's still, because Mitch Marner, if he was still here, you put him with Matthews. He was playing with Matthews. You guaranteed 80 points, guaranteed at
Yeah,
least
that's
30
what I'm
goals.
saying.
So
So it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility that Max Domi could have a super season if he was playing consistently on that top line with Austin Matthews. So because Matthews he's not only a scorer, but he's a playmaker, right? He's a great playmaker.
yeah. All right. So another thing, I want to switch to just one thing to the NBA. The dreams of Giannis and Antetokounmpo coming to Toronto. Masai Ujiri is gone. All right. And now Milwaukee has signed Giannis's brother. So Giannis is probably going to stay with Milwaukee there. All right. And anything else in the NBA that you want to touch on? Because then we're going to go to European soccer as we close it out, to talk about your Chelsea Blues, to talk about the EPL. The season just started again and all that. What do you expect? But anything you want to touch on NBA before we go to world soccer?
Oh, well, NBA is still a few months away, so we got lots of time to deal with that, and we'll see what happens in the season ahead. Key injuries to top players in the Eastern Conference, as we know. So some of the top players in the Eastern Conference. So lots to talk about, but we'll get into that when camps open up in about another month or so.
All right. And one other thing because if I start with European soccer with you, we may go to 1 in the morning here. But big news in wrestling. All right, wrestling. But the WWE has just signed on with ESPN, and mark my words, WrestleMania. They have 2 night WrestleMania. There's going to be more WrestleManias next year, and it's going to be on ESPN, but not even on ESPN. WrestleMania will be on ABC. Will be on ABC. I don't know. I don't know if that's going to be the case, but mark my words, it's going to be on ABC. They already signed a deal with Netflix, and Netflix still will be a contributor to the WWE, especially internationally. But in the States, all premier live events, pay-per-views, Saturday night main events, everything, it's going to be on ESPN, and ESPN is the home of the Disney, which is owned by ABC. I'm telling you, biggest stuff in the world. You think wrestling's big right now? Wait till next year. They just had a show, Clash in Paris, over 30,000 in an arena. WrestleMania did 2 nights, over 120. They're going to Saudi Arabia for Royal Rumble. There's going to be 2 WrestleManias next year. Bank on it. Norm, what do you say? Me and you go to a wrestling event with Patricia. You get hold the door open. You get all the all the drinks and all that, and me and Patricia go in our Norm. We could tell in our private booth at the Scotiabank Arena. I could do anything. You're just watching the empty seats at Vince Carter games.
Well, no, it was in the post Vince era that we used to see a lot of. Well, Vince was there; they had a lot of fans. But once he had gone, the Raptors had some down seasons, or seasons that were okay but not great. All right, and yeah, we used to see where the lower bowl, was more like 1/3 of the arena was filled, but that's when the ticket prices were a lot lower and much more affordable. Now Raptor tickets aren't exactly cheap either, Joe. You would know that better than me. How much are there? What's the range on Raptor tickets?
Norm Tussin would know about that, but Raptor seats go for courtside. Put it this way, I
Well,
think
that's
only
like a
three
couple
can
of
afford
thousand.
it.
How much?
Only courtside seats $800 to $1,200, depending. If the Lakers play, if
Yeah.
Charlotte plays or whatever, you may get a cheaper seat. But let's face it, every team in Toronto and every stadium and arena in Toronto just got more and more. You talk about Scotiabank Arena, they're doing expansion and they're doing renovations, and it has to be looking better and better. We talked about how much $300 million renovation for Skydome, Rogers Center, and all that, and this year they're going to finish it off with behind the plate seats. Like, you got to see that $2,000 a game for those exclusive. You just go downstairs, it's behind the plate. Like, it's off the charts, put it that way. All right. So now we'll close out the sports wrap. I'm going to give you a couple minutes to talk about, the world of footy, EPL, La Liga, Serie A, Bundesliga, whatever. We'll start off with EPL because that's where Chelsea plays. 3 matches into the season, Liverpool running the table at 9 points, but Chelsea 2 wins and 1 draw. What do you expect from Chelsea this season?
Well, they won the Club World Cup, upsetting PSG. They dominated PSG in that game in New Jersey at MetLife Stadium in front of, 82,000 fans.
And by the way, I just spoke about WWE. WWE and PSG just today announced a major deal. So look for more involvements with PSG and the WWE. Sorry, Norm, go ahead.
Well, not only that, but WWE, you would know this better than anybody, Joe. They have those belts for sale for what, 500, $1,000 where you get your favorite EPL team logo. Chelsea's one of them, but yeah, you can get your favorite team's logo.
Chelsea with championship belts. I'm hoping for my birthday, which is Super Bowl Sunday, February 2026. Me and Patricia are going to be watching on a big screen TV. You're more than invited with a cover charge of $20.
But Joe, seriously, how much do those belts cost? They're not cheap.
You're right, $500. I'm hoping you would bring me a championship Buffalo Bills belt. All right.
Well, all right. But anyway, in terms of the EPL, today was deadline day for player transactions and movements, Labor Day. And it finished at, 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock English time. Great Britain time, whatever you want to call it. Anyway,
six.
Yeah. Or Greenwich
Canadian time.
Greenwich time. So in any case, so now, player transactions are closed. At least until January when the window opens. So the window is closed. And I think you'll see some great races, Liverpool, Arsenal. You will see Chelsea is still the youngest team in the English Premier League, pardon me. And we'll see. They made a lot of good acquisitions, including João Pedro, including Estevao from Brazil. A youngster, he's 18, but he's slick. And he shows a lot of promise. So Cole Palmer is out with a groin injury for how long, we're not quite sure. And Levi Colwill is out for most of the year he had surgery on an ACL. So for Chelsea, there's some question marks, but they're coming off a great finish. They won the Conference League. They won the Club World Cup. As I mentioned, beating PSG and dominating them at their own game. So who knows what will happen, but you got to expect Liverpool and Arsenal probably to be fighting it out. City's had a bit of a slow start, but they're too good to continue slow. And the EPL is very competitive. Even the teams that have been near the bottom the last couple of years or in the middle of the pack can put up a good fight. It's a very physical game. It's a tough. There's not too many easy matchups in the English Premier League, no matter where teams are in the standings, right? There are easier games, but even the lower ranked teams can knock off any of the best teams on a given day. So it's almost like that NFL expression that we've been around for so many decades on any given Sunday. Well, in the English Premier League, it could be Saturday, Sunday, Monday, or Friday, but you get the drift, right? It's not just show up, put on your cleats, and away you go. It's a it's a pretty tough it's a pretty tough league to compete in, and most people regard it as the toughest, most competitive league. And people will argue about whether their favorite league is La Liga or Serie A, but I think most people would agree, if they're fair about it, the English Premier League is the toughest, most competitive league in terms of top to bottom and the style of play, which is very physical and very fast too.
By the way, all these leagues have taken a week off here, and let's go to the Serie A.
Yeah, it's the
Napoli,
international break. It's the
yes,
international break. That's why they're
Na-
taking the week off. Yeah.
Napoli's on top with Juventus second, and Roma also tied with Juventus and all that. So that's Serie A. Now look at La Liga there for all you Spanish. And by the way, that that teenager for Spain is off the charts. Real Madrid haven't lost. Athletic there also. So basically, every year you look at these top tiers teams who are in first place, make playoffs, and sometimes they lose on heartbreaking fashion, not scoring or penalty kicks or anything like that. So, uh, too early to tell in the season so far who's on top of the table and everything like that. For Bundesliga, it's Bayern Munich there who haven't lost yet, also, but. Let's look. We'll conclude. We talked about this before with the World Cup in Canada, U.S., and Mexico here. We have a question from a lady that Patricia, wants to know why doesn't Greece make the World Cup as often as they should?
Well, I don't know if you say they should. It's tough. It's tough qualifying in terms of some of the football superpowers that they've got to go up against. So it's a fair question, but to be honest with you, Patricia, I don't know enough about Greek football to know what's a fair expectation of them. I really don't. I know they have some great local teams, that compete, that people have seen before in some of the European competitions, like Olympiacos is one of
Yes,
their more well-known teams. So, but why, what they need to do better, I wish I could say I was enough of an expert, but our good friend Carmen Sacco would be more able to address that, or at least I think so. He's more familiar with them than I am. But, I think it was, 2004,
yes,
where
Greece.
Greece was like a big upset, a big underdog, and
Yeah,
they
Euros.
won. What was it? The Euro tournament? Was it
Yes,
the Euro?
yes.
Yeah. So I think that was the early part of the millennium, which is, great for football in Europe and great for football in Greece. But what they need to do, I couldn't really tell you. You'd have to know their developmental system to know. Like, why is it taking Canada so long? That Canada's done a better job in terms of upping their men's and women's team
That's my
by
next question.
youth development, and by focusing on developing good young players. So whether or not that happens in Greece or how much better it needs to get would be a fair question to ask.
A follow up from Patricia wants to know, ask the broadcasting legend if he likes Souvlaki or Euro.
Souvlaki is pretty good. Why do
All right. All right.
my favorite though is Greek salad. I'll take that anytime or any day of the week.
You're used to tossing around the salad, but anyways, so let's
Yeah.
uh, let's here, since we'll close it out. It's really early, but it's less than a year away. The World Cup. So give me your top. Forget about World Cup final. Let's see top 4, 6 teams that could win the World Cup.
Well, 4 or 6.
Number
I
one,
mean,
Spain.
well, okay. I'm just going to throw them in no particular order. I'm not going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know, but the teams that are in the mix. You always have to expect Spain, France. I think England is going to, if England stays healthy, with I think Thomas Tuchel is managing England now, if I'm
Yes.
not mistaken, the former Chelsea manager. So you have to look at them. You'd have to look at some of the Latin American teams, look at Argentina with Lionel Messi is always going to be in
Brazil.
the mix, right? You can't discount Brazil. They've got a great manager now. and they've got great players, obviously. And I guess,
Portugal with Ronaldo.
yeah, that's right. I mean, as long as he's still playing, I mean, the guy pulls off miracles. You're right. You can never. Portugal might be maybe not a favorite, but like a kind of like a wild card to win the whole thing. So there's a
Exactly.
lot. I think there's 6 or 7 clubs that you could say have a shot. And who knows? It'd be nice if we could see one of the African countries get in and have a shot at doing something special in terms of World Cup semifinals and maybe make it to the finals. So you just never know, right? If we all knew the outcomes of games before they happened or tournaments before they happened, then we wouldn't watch the games. So that's why we watch them. So I think there's probably 6 or 7 nations that are in there that are capable of doing something special. And hopefully for Canada and for our friends in the United States, playing the tournament. And, obviously Mexico the
Hold on,
same
hold on.
thing.
That's my next and final question. All right.
Yeah,
So it's Canada, United States, Mexico. Out of those three teams, okay,
yeah.
who has a better World Cup? Mexico, arguably, they're playing in Mexico, and they're, Mexico and the U.S. I would say Mexico is, it's a toss up, right? But can Canada surprise the world? Let alone, they have 6 games here at BMO Field. It's Canada, U.S., and Mexico. Which of those three teams have a better World Cup?
Well, that's hard to say, Joe. I mean, Mexico has always got a strong team. Canada's an up and comer. They put on a good showing, in the last tournament,
Yeah.
and they they Canada, if Canada stays healthy, and that's a big question. If they stay healthy and playing at home, they're going to get a huge lift playing at home. The United States, I would think the same thing. So I think it would be pretty fun if like Canada, United States, and Mexico made the final 16 of the tournament, and then anything can happen in one game, right? In one showdown. So if they can make it to the final 16 of the tournament, then playing at home, who knows? But that would be nice. It would be hard to see Canada knocking off or the United States or Mexico, the likes of Argentina or France or England. But could it happen? Sure, it could happen in a one-game showdown. Why not?
All right, that's the broadcasting legend Norm Rumack. Norm will be back here throughout, soccer, throughout hockey season, throughout everywhere. But Norm, tell everybody how they get a hold of you on social media.
Yeah, right here on the Fired Up Network, 2 or 3 times a week with Joe and some other great guests. So we talk about all the sports just like we did tonight. You name it: baseball, football, hockey, world football, local football, i.e., soccer, if you prefer. It's called in Canada, the United States, and in some other countries. For most football fans, it's footy. So we cover all the football: North American football, Canadian football, the National Football League, and world football, as in footy. So we've got most of the top sports, pretty much all of them, covered for you. Basketball, of course, in season, the National Hockey League from wire to wire.
And don't
So we've
forget,
got
we got
everything
great
covered for you.
guests for that. Former players, former wrestlers, Aaron Stevens on there, and
Yeah.
former players. And we mentioned Carmen Asako, who is one of the guys who made Canada soccer where it's going to be and where it is today. Carmen Asako. So throughout the year, we have celebrities. We have great guys like Norm, myself, John Freeman Nelson, Steve Carney, like I mentioned, a guy who won,
Philip Wilson.
yeah, Philip Wilson, and a guy who won 2 Emmys, who you're going to see here, Mark Everett Kelly. So stay tuned to the Fired Up Network. All our social medias, check it out. Fired Up Network 1. All our social medias now is Fired Up Network 1. We're on Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, Instagram. You could watch all these shows now on these platforms. On these platforms, you could watch Norm's. Well, maybe not Norm's face, but look at my hair. Look at everything here. But the final, and she replied back, and she says she wants to body slam, suplex, Paul drive Norm Rumack. That's Patricia. So Norm, will you let Patricia body slam you, suplex you, Paul drive you, give you a headlock, give take you in the small package because everybody knows you have a small package.
Well, I'd say it'd be more fun watching her do that to you, Joe, seeing as you're more close to her in age than I am.
Never mind. All right, Norm. So thanks a lot, and stay tuned for more great programming here on the Fired Up Network, our social media, Fired Up Network One, and NFL starting. We're coming close to NBA and NHL and MLB closing off. But next year, remember, World Cup soccer, World Cup soccer, and I'm going to try to get Norm, and with thanks to Carmen, out to BMO Field, not to watch the games, to be the beer seller. Right, Norm?
Actually, I'd rather be consuming the ice cream and popcorn and those media
No, no,
meals.
that's all for me. Pizza. That's all for me and a guy named Harvey Korman. Thanks a lot, Norm.